SOS! They're taking us! I hope that this is not just a cry for help, but that we can alert everyone who's going through this abduction process. Many abductees are placed under a hypnosis process, a type of memory suspension, so that there is no memory of these attacks when people are taken from their homes after the experiments and manipulations.
The consciousness we call AI, the Archons, and all the nefarious beings that serve them, knowing about the Federation project in favor of humanity, engendered a project in which they could use the same access doors, through the mediumship of some humans, and began to develop one of the Demiurge's programs. They specialized in co-opting exiles from other systems that were trapped here in the inner earth, astral scientists and black magicians, creating dark sects, and even perverting those that should be for the awakening of consciousness. They contaminated some temples that should be sacred, so they found fertile ground in the minds of some humans, who were lost by ego and power, becoming pseudo-gurus and masters. They and their blind servants and followers are the openings for the nefarious network to enter and manipulate. Negative beings coupled through the process of incorporation or channeling, bringing manipulated messages from the false light, to maintain control through fear and subservience, creating wars among their own, asking for sacrifices in exchange for something, selling the illusion of salvation, creating diseases, and directing the unwary to surrender to a demiurge god and entities dressed in light. And with that, the dome was restructured to develop more forms of illusion, with programs and projects creating new illusion chambers and holograms of false colonies. More laboratories in the astral plane were created, and manipulation began in the abductions of the astral body, and with that, came other types of complex obsessions. And in the larger project, the Archons created other ways to deceive, and force humanity to return to the wheel of samsara infinitely. Leon warned me that it would be important for me to use another frequency name, which would be a way to appear and meet others like me, who were waking up within the planetary network, and so, I would also have the help connected to that frequency, every time I'd introduce myself, or when people called that name. From then on, I would be able to recover some files and memories of the contacts, and gather others like me who were being taken, since childhood, to the Oval Room, the laboratory. Soon after, he started calling me by that frequency and as strength took me, I felt an energy that went up and down in my astral body. I immediately felt that my vibratory pattern increased, to the point that I started to see symbols and geometries, and he warned me that with these encodings, I could transfer myself to any location and dimension, and meet with a part of my fractals, and reach my monad. I would also open up psychic potentialities and could read people's frequencies, but I could never use that negatively, for my own good. Leon then said, "Touch one of the symbols and see what happens." I obeyed, and suddenly a rift opened up in front of us, and we walked through it. On the other side, I realized that I had been transferred to a city, so he showed me that I was accessing a timeline, and could see what was happening to some people. I understood that some were part of my soul's fractals. Then I touched another symbol, and I could see some abductions in various places on the planet, happening at the same time at that moment. Soon after, he told me to touch a specific symbol, so I did, and I was transferred to Sao Paulo. I walked into an apartment on the west side of the city, and there was a teenager sleeping. His astral body was sitting next to the physical body that was sleeping on the bed. This young man had also recently been abducted like I was tonight, but he was stripped of his memories, and when he was returned, he had no recollection of the experiences. I was watching the teenager for a few moments, and an energy took over me. I felt that somehow I knew him, and I let Leon pass me the information about this war. He told me that we had already lived and gone through some experiences in incarnations on Earth, and whenever we started to awaken in our potential, the Archons created traps to get us out of the way. But somehow, we were always aided by the network of our spiritual hierarchy. In some experiences, incarnate and disincarnate, we mess with high-energy technology and magnetism, and somehow, we leave legacies and even guidelines that changed an entire period of history. We participated in crucial moments in the history of humanity. In this current experience, this teenager was suffering attacks, and they tried to interfere with his timeline several times, but there was a very strong energy in him that prevented them from being able to bring the project down in this experience. When I touched him, I could read his frequency, and I accessed a moment of his childhood, and I could see that he felt many things that I also went through. I felt that at times he thought that something could take him. In fact, those were memories of the interventions that he passed many times. I could see that he was like me as a child. He had very strong mind control during abductions, and the Greys couldn't put him in suspension and hypnotize him either. Leon informed me that this teenager came to carry out a project as an empath, and with the ability to see beyond matter. But like me, who was shipped and lost my hearing, he went through a very complicated situation during one of the abductions, and ended up losing the sight in one of his eyes, which hampered his mediumship process, and they put a program in his mind, which makes him not have the memories of the abductions. I learned at this point that he, myself and others, were taken several times to the Oval Room, the laboratory, when we were children, to be tested, controlled and experimented with, by a group of extraterrestrials and dimensional beings linked to the Confederation, in order to put some as agents, to work at a given moment in our lives, in our solar system and in other systems. Some of us are still carried to the present day in our timeline as children, and we return to the room, as there has been a project going on the planet for a very long time, but I will come back to this subject later. Leon touched the teenager, who began to see us. At first, he didn't understand what was happening. He was nervous and scared, and Leon sent an energy to him that made him calm down. At this point, we established a telepathic conversation, and I could see that he became calmer. Then Leon introduced us, told us that at some point in our lives, we would meet physically, and we would do a job to alert people that a manipulation has been going on since the beginning of the creation of the human experience on this earth, and that our work would help in the awakening of the collective conscience, and that we would warn about beings who were wrongly sanctified, but who are dementors, and are part of an agenda of the occult government and the dark cabal. Leon, with the triangular stone he carried in his chest, rose in the air and traced a geometry unknown to me, and the three of us went to a structure off planet Earth, which we call the bridge, or command room. In this place, they told us many experiences that we had in other incarnations, and about the networks that were connected to us, and that they would contact at the right time, and the revelations would begin. From the bridge, we were placed inside a kind of geometry, which was actually an energetic chariot, which had the ability to unfold once again, to what we call the structure of the royal house. Once there, Leon introduced us to a senate and principality, which we now call the Heirloom and Optimum Frequency. There were other incarnated and desincarnated humans in this place, who were somehow part of our soul's fractals network. One of the representatives of the Senate informed us that, from this moment on, we would start working together with a network, and would start to find other workers, through the process of projection of consciousness. I called Leon and asked if the two of us, upon returning to the body, would remember this whole experience, and if we could try to find each other physically. He informed that, in order to safeguard the teenager's conscience, he would have no memories when he returned to the physical body, but at a certain point, he would begin to have full access to the memories and even the saddest ones, during the processes of abductions and experiments in the laboratory room. The teenager told me that he understood and knew why. I believe that Leon, during the moment he had mental contact with him, passed on some information that I didn't have access to. As a conscious projector since my childhood, I knew that I would remember many things. I know when I came back, it was still difficult to bring all the files back, as it was like a quantum computer trying to couple with the analog, but a lot of things wouldn't come back. Somehow, I would remember this teenager, and I was happy that he would have Leon closer too, as a sidereal friend. I said goodbye to the teenager, as if I was leaving a part of me, and a pain and longing that I couldn't explain plagued my spirit. It was as if I was saying goodbye to someone who was very important to me. I knew we'd meet again on astral travels very soon, but it felt like a part of me was getting lonely. I was brought into the physical body and woke up at 8:30 a.m., still feeling the burning in my urinary tract, which would last for a week. So I went back to my activities during the day, without thinking about the abduction, because it made me sick, but the memories of the projection of the astral body, the arrival of Leon, the reunion with the teenager, and the deployment to the access bridge, stayed for a long time hovering in my mind, along with the information that from this day on, I would be in contact with the other fractals, and that we would begin to meet in the projections of the astral body, and work in and out of the dome of our solar system, and we would meet others representatives in the fractalization process and structure of the children of the royal house. The weeks passed, everything was calm, and I had even forgotten about the terrible experience I had lived. But unfortunately, it didn't take long, maybe a few months, and one afternoon I started to hear the thin whistle, which made me panic, because I knew I would be taken by those who had been abducting me for a long time. To be continued.